Hi, this is Tutor Buxton. Welcome to Construction Quantity Surveying Tutoring channel, where we get to learn construction, especially quantity surveying, in aspects that are more clear than you will never find in any other channel. We've been doing what we call preparation of bills of quantities over the past 7 series, and today we would like us to continue with the same course. For what we've done so far, we've done all the items, including preparation from the preliminaries, going all the way, general preliminaries, particular preliminaries, and so on. Today, I would like us to continue from where we left the very last session, and that was talking about the reinforced concrete work. So we have done a few number of items. We've done what we call strip footing. We've also done column bases. There are a few items that are left from the substructures concerning the reinforcement work, and I would like us to do them. So the one that we're going to start with is the stub columns. Stub columns, you can also call them the foundation columns if you wish. These are the ones that we'd like to measure today, and also what we call the ground beams. And after we've done the two, I believe we'll be okay for now. I would also like to respond to some queries that I got from the comments in the last video. One of them was concerning the provision of the drawings and those that we are using. So I will try to attach them in the community, so you will find them from there. The drawings which you are using to do our bills of quantities, I'll attach them there. If you need them, you will get them from that point. Also, concerning the production of at least 2 videos per day, at the moment we can manage 1 video, that is assured, on every day. Every day we get to produce new videos, and as well on weekends we'll be doing what we call the shorts, just a few trends in construction and so on. So let's get to work. The stub columns, they are measured in cubic meters. And how do we go about that? So normally I would like to maintain the same approach that I used to do the column bases, where we prepare what we call a column schedule. In the column schedule, you get to just note the types of columns that you have, including the sizes, alright, and the numbers. So I would like us to just copy what we did in this very point. For instance, this is the column-based schedule that we had. So now it's going to be referred to as a column schedule. So once we prepare the column schedule, it will be easier for us to do the volume of concrete in each of them, and then do a summation and get our total volume that is required. So I'll just copy this and make an edit just to make our work easier. As usual, this channel tries to break down the work so that it's simpler. So this is edited to column schedule, and then we count the number of columns that we have and the sizes. So this is now called column schedule. So from the column schedule, ID will remain to be the same, just the identification of each of the columns as we can see them from the plan. So you'll refer to your plan so that you see the layout in terms of how those columns have been arranged, and the number of them, which is of a major concern to us now. How many of them are there, and the sizes. Of course, sizes you'll find from the details, which is in the next page from my presentation. So what I will do, I'll just break this page so that it becomes clear. Alright, so once I've just split my screen so that we are able to show both the drawing and our Excel sheet that we are using to do the calculations. So from the ID, I would like us to start with this is C1. That is the first column that I would like us to start with. And then from C1, from what I can see, I can also note there is another C2. And then we have C3 as another type of column, and basically there are those 3. I can see C1, C2, and C3. well, so it means we'll delete this what we have in this row that way. Alright, so as usual, from the number here, I would like us to just use the letters instead of the figures, so that we'll tally them when we've finished counting them from the plan. So from what is here, let me just zoom it in properly so that you're able to see. As usual, I would like us to start from I would like us to follow the grids so that you don't miss out on any of the columns that has been arranged there. So first of all, we'll consider the sizes. So we can go consider the sizes from the details, C1, C2, and C3. I'll just go that to the lower page. So C3, for instance, is here, column C3, it's 500 times 200. Okay, so as usual, I like to reiterate that the longer side should be your length, and then the shorter side is your width, as usual. That is C3. Then this is the one that we have as C3. I would like us to see this now. C1 is 500 times 200. Okay, so let me just zoom it in properly. This is the detail where you have the sizes provided. So this is 500 times 200, so that is 0.5 times 0.2. Actually this is C1. Oh, sorry, I've interchanged them. So this is the C1 it's 500 by 200, so 0.5 by 0.2. okay, then I'll look for C2. C2 is here. C2 is also 500 by 200, so it's just the same size. Of course, we'll do away with this column for the depth, but then just wait, we'll just see how to go about that last column where we're talking about the depth, I mean the height of the columns. So C3, that is what we also check on. So C3 is here, and from C3 I can see it's 600 times 200. C3 is 600 by 200, so that is 0.6 times 0.2. Well done. Now we look at the height. So this is going to be height. You can refer to it as height instead of depth. So for the height of substructure columns, you can always check if it's provided. For instance, in this column, the structural engineers provided that we use a minimum of 1500 millimeters. Okay, so from my cursor, you are able to see the 1500 millimeters D.O.S. It means you use a minimum of 1500, but then the rest of it will be determined on site. That is what that annotation means. So we'll use the 1500 that is provided here just for the provisional height of 1.5 meters depth. So that will apply to the rest of the columns, and then we'll talk about the number. So for the number, for you to count the numbers, go back to the plan, and the plan is just in the next page. I'll zoom it in so that we count it together. So I'll start it from grid number 1. At grid number 1, then I count number of columns falling on that very grid. So at grid number 1, just follow it along. Leave alone the boundary wall, that will be considered separately. At grid number 1, we have the very first one is at that junction of E1. So let me get my pencil so that I'm able to draw and you're able to see where those particular items or the columns are. So I'll get the pencil, then I draw those very parts. So for instance, the very first one is at E1, and that is C1. So the very first C1 is at between the junction between grade 1 and grade E1, so that is 1 for C1. So I'll just make a letter the way I was using for the previous work. Then the next is also C1, so we have C1, 2 of them so far. Then that grid is complete. So the next grid is at grid 2. Grid 2 G1, I get another C1, so that is 3 of them so far. Then at grid 2B, grid 2B1, I get another C1. Okay, so we have that as well. Then we get to grid 3, just follow it along that line. There is no column that I'm able to see there. I'll go to grid 4. Grid 4, there is a C1 and a C3. So a C1 will be added there. And then now a C3. A C3 is, yes, let me just delete that. So we have a C3. Then going all through, there is no any other column there. Then from point, that was grid 4. At grid 5, we have column C2 and column C1. So I will add for C1 another column, and then the other column is C2. C2 is 1, just 1, that way. That is grid 5 complete. I'll go to grid 6. There is no column there. At grid 7, there is a C2 and a C1. Okay, C2 and a C1 at grid 7. So C2, I'll add 1, and then C1, I will also add another column. Okay, so that is the grid 7 complete. I'll go to grid 8. Grid 8, we have C1 and C3. So I will add another C1, and go to C3, add another column. Okay, that is grid 8. Then I'll go to grid 9. There is no column there. At grid 10, there is a column C1, so we'll add a C1 there. Then I will go through straight to the end. There is another C1 to the very end, so I will add another C1 here. Alright, then I'll go to grid, that was grid 10. Then I'll go to, there's another grid 10 part of it, now to the very last portion. There are 2 C1s. Okay, so I will add 2 C1, so 1, 2. Then I will tally what we've gotten. We've got from the plan, so that we have them in numbers and we get our volume for what we need. So what we have here, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 12 columns for C1, and then 2 columns C2 and another 2 columns C3. Of course, for the volume, our formula is already in place, so it's automatically updated in regard to the sizes that we've got for our columns. Then this one is 0 because there is nothing here, and a summation of what we've got is giving us the total volume of concrete for the columns, and that is 2.46. We round that up, we get 2. Now we round to the next nearest hole, so we get 3 cubic meters for our stub columns. So this is cubic meters, and the quantity is 3 cubic meters. So we move on. That is the way you will go about foundation columns, how to get their estimate for the quantity of the columns. Then for this session as well, I would like us to cover what we call ground beams. So let's see what we have as ground beams. So this is now going to be P, and this is ground beams. So for the ground beams, as usual, so the next item that I would like us to cover is on ground beams. And for us to do that, we'll just make an interpretation of what we have on the plan. Then we compare it to what's provided on the details, so that we see the size that is available, and of course we are able to also get the length and get the volume for the concrete. So as usual, to the side on our Excel sheet, that is where we do our calculations. So I'll just get down to this very cell and just title it ground beams. After that, I will get back to, so for the detail, I can see here, this is now the typical section through the strip footing. The ground beam that we are talking about here is on the at the top of the foundation walls. So when we have the length for our foundation walls, then we should use the same length for us to calculate what we have in terms of the volume for the concrete ground beams. So we'll get the length here is equals to, there is a point we did our foundation walls, so we'll just trace it, and after we got that length, it should be equal to what we have in terms of the ground beams. So I'll look for it. It should be right. Let me see if we did trenches anywhere here. So if you don't have the trenches, well, I've got it here. So from what we have, where we got the concrete blinding under the strip footing, we got the summation of the 4.9 plus 2.4. So I'll get back to our plan and just confirm those dimensions. So from what we have, we got it from, if I'll just make a drawing so that I'm able to emphasize what is going on. From grade B1 to E1, that is where we have the first dimension, the first length of that strip footing, onto which we have what we call the ground beam. So I'll just get to draw it so that you're able to see it properly. Well, so my pencil is here. So from this very point going down, so that is the scope of where we have the foundation walling, and on top of it is where we have what we call the ground beam. So our length should be equivalent to what we got here, and we got it to be 14.6. okay, so basically, even if at all you're wondering how you'd go about that, if at all you have so many walls, there shouldn't be a worry, because what matters here is for you to find that principle, and that principle from the example I'm giving you is stating that you refer to your details and see where that given foundation ground beam is going to be laid. So once you have that, then be able to interpret it from the plan in terms of getting the very length, and you'll be able to get what you call that particular volume. So we have the length, and then I'll get back to the details, which is here, and the ground beam is indicated, and the size is 300 times 200. okay, so our width is going to be 0.2, and then the depth or the thickness of the beam, whichever word you like to refer it to, and then that is 0.3. So our volume in that case is a product of those three figures. Multiply that by this, and then times that, you get 0.876. So even if you had a longer length of beam and so on, the principle remains the same. So that is the most important aspect to understand from this particular discussion. So that is 1 cubic meter for the ground beams. Alright, so that is what we have to cover now. So generally, that is how you go about concrete volume for the foundation columns, or the stub columns if you wish, and as well ground beams. So that brings us to the end of our session for today, and moving forward, we'll be covering the rest of the items, including the substructure, slabs, and reinforcement, and so on. So for what is left, that will be covered in our next session. I want to thank you very much for watching up to this point, and I'm confident that it's been worthwhile. Kindly subscribe before you leave and turn on the notification so that you don't miss any of our subsequent videos. So thank you very much.